Every story begins with a question. Some questions are answered. Other remains buried beneath silence, conflicting accounts, and their passage of time. This is the story of an infant born to an incarcerated mother in Mississippi, marked by tragedy, wrongful death lawsuit, allegation of racial discrimination, abuse of power, and systematic failures. Through photographs, public records, and the voices of those who lived through these events, we examine what happened, what is documented, what remains disputed, and why so many questions linger. This documentary does not ask viewers to accept one conclusion without question. Instead, it invites you to examine the evidence, listen to different accounts, and consider what justice requires when a family continues searching for answers. It is not only a story, but a call for accountability, transparency, and the enduring pursuit of truth. Welcome to the Tangled Webs of Mississippi. When I arrived at the prison in 2008, Amber had already been there for a couple years, serving a 5-year sentence. By then, a lot of us had heard parts of her story, how she said her newborn baby had died while she was in county jail, and how she believed a sheriff was responsible for the death of her newborn child. Before I knew the details of her story, I knew her as a person. She had a warm personality, and honestly, one thing everybody knew was how much she loved chicken. Little things like that. You'll laugh together. It made the wall feel a little less heavy. Then later, she began sharing that story about what happened years earlier when she was pregnant in that county jail. She never changed her account, and that's when the newspaper moment happened. A Jehovah's Witness visited my cell one day during Bible study. She had a newspaper for some reason. I don't remember why, but I remember reading it. I saw an article about a sheriff's death after being hit by a vehicle. When I saw his name, I called out to Amber. I told her, "Amber, the man you said killed your baby, I think he's dead." She couldn't see the paper from her cell, so the Jehovah's Witness walked down the hall and handed it to her. Amber read it and looked up and said, "Yeah, that's him." And I was happy for her. It felt like maybe God had intervened in some quiet way. She said before that if she ever saw him again, she might take matters into her own hand. I didn't know if she would, but she clearly meant it when she said it. I believe the Creator had a way of intervening. That's how I always remember it. It wasn't dramatic. It was quiet, but it stayed with me. I was still processing that exchange with Emma when I saw the newspaper right there, a headline about the sheriff Emma had named. He had been killed, but it was Sheriff Stanley McLeod who was in charge of the county jail at the time. He was the one holding her, and he was the one overseeing everything that day. Even though it's not an official public record, Amber knew. She knew who had custody of her baby in those last hours. And now I am left asking, how was another sheriff from a different county involved? And how did that happen under McLeod watch? We need to understand what went wrong and why these details never made it into public record. I wasn't there the day her baby died, and I can't speak to what happened firsthand. What I can tell you is what Amber consistently shared with me and others while we were incarcerated together. She never changed her account. Not with me, not with the other women who knew her. Her story stays the same every time she spoke about it. But Sheriff Gary Marshall Wilford was only one part of the story. The jail, where Amber was incarcerated was under the authority of Sheriff Stanley McLeod. According to the published reports, Stanley McLeod stated that once the jail staff became aware, they followed procedures and made sure that Amber was transported to the hospital and received medical care. Those were the official statements released to the public. As I compare those official statements with what Amber consistently told me and what she shared with other inmates, I realized there was an important difference between the public record and the account she carried with her every day. My purpose isn't to tell the viewers what they must believe. It's to present both the official records and the story of Amber to entrust those who knew her, while making it clear which is which. Amber told me that the trouble started when the jail staff knew she was pregnant. She said she was carrying a biracial baby and she believed that shaped the way she was treated. Her carrying a biracial baby, it does not appear in official records, but it is what she lived and remembered, and for her, that difference between what is written down and what she carried with her every day is something people need to hear. As I continued researching Amber's case, I came across reporting from the Prison Legal News describing allegations made in her wrongful death lawsuit. According to the lawsuit, Amber said that while she was in labor, she repeatedly asked for help but was refused, and that she was threatened with mace if she did not stop screaming, despite being in extreme pain. It also alleges that when staff were told the baby was breech and beginning to emerge, the medical assistance was not summoned immediately. Instead, the lawsuit says other female inmates were instructed to assist while staff watched. These are serious allegations present in the lawsuit, and they stand alongside the official statement that the jail staff followed procedures. As Amber continued telling me her story, she shared a moment that never left her. She told me that Sheriff Gary Marshall Wilford was holding her baby when he looked at her and said, "Your nigger baby is dead." I wasn't there, so I can't verify the exchange myself, but Amber told me directly and never wavered in her account. Based on the time I knew her, I believe she believed her own experience. That statement doesn't appear in public records I have seen, but it's part of what she carried with her and asked me to understand. Amber also told me that before they took her baby out of the area, she said the baby was still moving and even crying. So in her memory, at least, she believed her baby was alive when that moment happened. As I kept learning more about Amber's story, I came across accounts mentioned in Prison Legal News. Allegations from her lawsuit says when she was in labor, she asked for help and was refused, even threatened with mace if she didn't stop screaming. That same account alleged that when staff were told the baby was breech and began to emerge, medical assistance wasn't immediately called. Instead, the lawsuit says other female inmates were told to help while staff watched. Those are serious allegations. The official statement says that jail staff follow procedures. My role isn't to tell you which to believe. My job is to lay out both the official record and what Amber told those around her consistently. That difference is significant, and it is something that viewers deserve to hear clearly. In public records, the sheriff said staff followed procedures, but according to the allegation reported in the Prison Legal News, Miller said she begged for help and was threatened instead, and that assistance wasn't called until later. Both accounts exist side by side, and that's what makes this so difficult to sit with. According to the report, it was only after a male prisoner called for help that Miller was finally transported to the hospital. The official record says one thing, and Amber's account, which she shared with me and others, says something very different. Years later, after Amber told me what she believed happened to her baby, I saw news about Sheriff Gary Marshall Wilford, and I remember the day the Jehovah's Witness brought the paper in. When Amber saw his picture, she recognized him right away. She said, "Yeah, that's him." I remember feeling like maybe that was one of those moments only God could explain. Whether others see it that way is up to them, but that's how I remember that day. On July the 21st, 2010, and then authorities identified the two people involved in Sheriff Wilford's death as 19-year-old Brandy Nicole Williams and 24-year-old Christopher Lee Bastard. Some later records list him as 25, but at the time of the incident, he was 24. Those are the names on record. But what stays with me is what Amber said she lived through. She told me they didn't treat me like a person in there. I can't prove every word, but I believe her. That's her truth. I just remembered that moment when her name was in the paper. I didn't know what to feel. I just sat with it. It's strange how a few words on paper can hit like that. What I do know is how it sat with me. I kept thinking about how fast people form an opinion and how slow the world is to listen. I don't have all the facts, but I have what she told me, and I believe her. That's the truth I can stand in. Some questions remain unanswered, some records incomplete, but silence was never the answer. This is the truth I can stand in, and I leave the rest to history, to justice, and to you.